It was January 30th, 1992. We're at the home of Dorothy Whittaker and C.B. Whittaker here in Holmes Beach. You see this beautiful shell collection. And Carolyn wants to start the interview. Yeah.
Today we have the honor of being with Dorothy Raymond Whittaker at her Holmes Beach home, and Dorothy has this fabulous shell collection, so beautifully displayed. I think she said her grandson-in-law did the lighting, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Dorothy, when did your family first come to the island?
They came here in 1924, but before that my father came here when he was 12 years old. He came here because because his uncle, who was the second homesteader on the island, his name was Samuel Cobb, came here and established a home and also a farm on Key Royal, which was School Key at that time. And there was they had dredged a place where the big steamers could come in at a landing, so that all the produce that they had went to Tampa. And I think one of those ships was called the Favorite. And but later my father went back to New Jersey, where he came from, and married my mother, and later we came to Cortez, and a year later my father bought a houseboat. Now, it wasn't the kind of a houseboat that ordinarily you would see on the water today. It was more like a great big barge, covered barge with one main room that was sectioned off for bathroom, and another one for the kitchen and so forth. And this floated, of course, and he had some of his friends from Cortez. He was a fisherman. My dad had a launch, and the other people that he wanted hired had a launch, and they each tied rope to each end of the two ends of the barge and towed it down the waterway. And it was the bridge opened up for it. We had an old cat that was with us for 13 years, and she was inside very contented and happy till she came outside. They had a porch on the front and on the back, and she came out on one of the porches and looked all around and saw all that water and cried like a baby until we could get to dry land. And dry land was a place my dad had cleared out on the shoreline down here. It was in Cobb's property at that time, but it would be more in the location of where the yacht club is, between the yacht club and the marina. And he had chopped up some mangroves. Nobody cared what you did with the mangroves in those days, and cleared a place. And the two men put the houseboat up on blocks and brought out a gangplank that reached the shore, and that was our home until I was 12 years old. Now, this was in 1924.
And your father's name was?
Joseph Raymond.
And then you had one brother?
Yeah, my brother was a year and a half older than I was, and his name was Steve.
They called him?
Steve. He was later.
Sure.
No, that was my dad.
That was your
My dad had he was doing stevedore duty in Cortez when he was just a young man, and he was rolling 100 pounds of sugar off of the dock, and it went in the wrong direction and went overboard.
Oh.
And ever since then, they've called him Sugar. Everybody in Cortez called him Sugar.
Nickname.
Yeah. So then, when my brother and I got here, it was nothing like you would expect it to be today, because there was a little settlement up at Ann Maria and another little settlement down at Brandon Beach, but there was practically nothing in between. There was no Holmes Beach then, and there was the Cobbs, which was the older people, and the other homesteader, John R. Jones, his name was. He was an attorney from Tampa, and he put his spread down there, which is in the vicinity of Sportsman Harbor now. And he had everything you could imagine on that property of his, because the government worked with him, would send him seeds and all kinds of cuttings and whatever to see what would grow out here on the island. And he planted everything in the books. There was a lot of things from the mainland that he brought over too, just to see what would grow here in this different.
Did you know of a man named Gowanlock?
Gowanlock, yes. No, I didn't know him personally, but my dad did.
I've read about him.
Yeah, that was his spread of property where we ended up in the houseboat.
Oh.
And his
Now,
own,
you could homestead in those days, couldn't
Yes,
you?
you could.
And what, you just put your things
Well-
on a piece of land and it was yours,
Well,
or how did that work?
yes, you had to go through the papers, of course, and I guess the courts, which was not a very sophisticated thing to do. There wasn't any strings attached, just get a lawyer and fix it up. But the thing you did have to do was clear your land and live on it. If you didn't live on it the year round, at least live on it part of the time.
Was that called squatting?
No, I don't think so. Squatting, I think, was a little different, wasn't it, Gene?
Yeah, that was setting out on somebody else's property and just staying there, and
yeah.
that was
That's
not.
what Gowanlock did, I think. I read that.
Well, oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, he probably did,
On
because I don't,
James's.
There were a lot of that at that time because nobody really kept up lines and all that kind of business.
I don't remember him being related to anybody, but he was on Cobb property.
Mhm.
And he had a lot of vegetables that he was growing too. And I guess he was quite an interesting old man, although I never knew him personally. He was gone when we got there.
So the main thing your father did was fishing then?
Yes, my father was a fisherman. And my brother and I each had a little boat. Now, in the bottom of that boat, it didn't have a seat. It was just big enough for a little kid to sit in the bottom and not row, but paddle with blades on both ends. And we'd go all over the bay. The only place we were forbidden to go was in the steamer channel, the main steamer channel. But there wasn't any other channels. There was low places in the water that we called, I don't remember what it was called, potholes, I guess, where the water was deeper in places. But there was no other channels except the one that Cobb had that went out to the main.
Were there other children your age?
None at all. They were all old people. There were just 3 families there, and my brother and I had each other, and that was all. If we wanted any other companions, my mother had to take us up to Anna Maria in the car to visit, and we'd usually end up at the pavilion up there where kids usually hung out.
Was that where the sandbar is now?
Yeah.
How long was that pier? I kept hearing about it, and we saw some of the pilings when we moved down here. And how long was that pier that went out there? It was fairly long, wasn't it?
No, that pier was the same one that's there now.
No, I'm talking about on the Gulf.
I don't remember one on the go.
Yeah, there was supposed to have been one.
Pavilion?
That may have been.
Was it a pavilion
It
on
was in the beach, on the beach, yeah. That's the only one I remember.
Mhm.
I think that was a diving platform out there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there was a diving platform.
Okay, so it was just complicated because somebody thought it was a pier, and I thought I didn't think so
I
on the
don't think
Gulf.
so either, Gene.
But okay.
I've never heard anybody speak of it, And it wasn't there then.
So the family up on the North Point, the Halls, that they were there, and
They were not there then, no. Not in 1924.
oh, they had gone back.
They'd all gone, yeah. The
I
only,
think they had the property though. I think they.
oh yeah, they probably did. Now, Mrs. Coleman, Mrs. Lulu Coleman, and Marion were related to them,
Yes.
and they were here. But I
They
don't,
were up where the community center is.
yeah,
at.
But my brother and I would get in these little boats, and we'd go all over. And I remember one time there was a place up there. It was sort of a cutoff between the mangroves, where it went into the Anna Maria Bayou, and we could just barely get our boats in through there. And we thought that was real
I bet that.
interesting. But there was always these water snakes that was hanging up in the mangroves.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
And when we'd rattle or get too close to the sides of the mangroves, and sometimes they'd fall down in the boat,
Yeah.
but they'd just crawl right out and go
they
overboard.
weren't with-
Yeah, they weren't anxious to see you. I know.
No, they didn't. We didn't want to see them. They were not poisonous.
I'm sure there were a lot more fish in those days.
Oh, there was a lot of fish all over the place. Later, when my brother and I was scalloping all the time, we always came home with a flounder because they were buried at low tide.
Mhm.
And
That was your mainstay for meals, I'm sure. Seafood.
oh yeah, seafood was practically it. Now we had a cow and we had chickens. Now a lot of people would probably be a little surprised about that because, well, a little further up the island, this Harry Dittman also had a cow. I guess he did.
He was
because
the
he had a dipping
postmaster.
Postman for.
Yeah, he had a dipping vat which we used about twice a year to get rid of the ticks on the animals. And they had to go down a chute, a concrete chute, and once they got started, they couldn't stop.
Right.
Oh,
And they plunged right into that water,
oh,
head, neck, and heels.
this is some kind of treatment? they
Yeah,
took for-
yeah.
Oh,
It kills all the ticks.
We still do that in places.
Yeah. And this cow of ours had a bad time in the summer when the mosquito season was with us.
oh.
And those mosquitoes were really something. We had to use all kind of things. We'd take kerosene and wipe over the screens in our house boat, and we would use smudges. And in front of every door would be a palmetto fan. You would be
Swisher.
careful in the door without taking that palmetto fan, beating the mosquitoes off of you. And that cow would be taken out every morning. My dad would spray her up real good first with a spray. Then he'd take her out and tie her to a tree, and she'd eat all day long. But he'd go out again in the afternoon, spray her again, and then when he got ready to bring her home, he would have her food ready and her water ready, and he'd go out to get her, and he'd untie her, but that was as far as it went. She'd tear down that path to go home just as fast as she could go. My dad couldn't even keep up with her. And she wouldn't stop for her food, she wouldn't stop for the water. She'd head right for the water, the bay,
Oh,
and she'd go out there until there was nothing showing but her nose sticking up. And she'd stay out there for maybe a half hour. And no, I'm sure that warm salt water was soothing
yeah.
Sure.
to her skin.
Well, now what did the people do? I mean, you
They
couldn't
did-
stay inside all day.
No, they just put up with them. That's all you could do.
Wear long sleeves,
Yeah,
and long pants,
yeah.
and a hat.
Mm-hmm. And this of course was only in the summer, and when the wind was blowing there wasn't any. And just let that wind die out. And besides that there was just sandflies that were worse because you couldn't even see them. Yeah, it was just a miserable time of the year. And then as first cold snap they'd leave. Probably leave before that.
I wanted to ask you, of course, in the early days, there was no central heat or air conditioning in the houses.
Oh no.
And how did you adjust to that?
Well, we had pot-bellied stove in the houseboat. Kept us warm real well. And I'm sure that others that lived up at Anna Maria in the homes had, a lot of them had fireplaces. But other than that, they were using kerosene stoves. And that was it.
And then in the summer,
For what? Oh, we had no such thing as air conditioning. We just had to put up with it. We opened up our houses as much as possible and had fans. And that was it.
or how about social activities in those days?
Well, the community, up there where the players is now, was our big deal. Every time there was any social gathering, that's where it was. And we had a music teacher, Miss Kathleen Jones, that she was the daughter of the homesteader down
Did she
here.
become Donovan?
Yeah, and she was our music teacher. And we'd put on little operettas and all kinds of things. She gave us a great background in music. She really did. And we'd have plays up there and singing groups and Halloween parties, Christmas parties, all in that building.
Now, of course, this was before a bridge to the island, or did you have the wooden bridge?
The wooden bridge was here in I think it was there in shortly after 1921. And then when I came here, we came over the bridge.
Did you go down to the Braden Beach Pavilion sometimes too? Wasn't that built at that
No,
time?
we didn't go down there.
Okay.
That was mostly for the public from
Right.
Bradenton.
Sure. Okay.
And they came down, changed their clothes and went swimming.
Right.
Tell me about the school. What
Oh, it was right up there where the community center is now. You know, before they tore it down, they still got the bell. But it was a 2-room school, and there was one teacher for everybody.
Who was your first
My,
teacher?
I don't remember the first one, but Lena Phelps was mostly was my teacher mostly during the 1 to 6 years on the island. And she also taught my daughter the same thing, the same amount of years. So she,
Or she was later principal at the island
yeah,
school.
When they moved over there, she was.
yeah. She was a good teacher, and we all loved her. Let's see what else.
Now, wasn't Betty Blackburn? Did Betty Blackburn come later, or
She was.
Clyde Phelps was Betty Blackburn's
Yeah.
brother?
She was a teacher, and so was Hartley, but they didn't teach on the island here.
Oh,
I think they taught Fortes first,
oh, I see.
and then were transferred probably to Braden. I'm not sure about that, but they were here.
Well, when you first started school, about how many children were in school?
Well, that was a problem quite often because we didn't have any tourists to speak of, very few. And many times there wouldn't be enough enrolled for the county to produce a teacher. So they all got together, I remember, and anybody that they could farm out, bring in somebody else's kid that could attend for 3 or 4 weeks. They did. I remember B. Cobb had a little son, and she lived in Tampa. But instead of enrolling him in Tampa, she'd send him down here. Then the Cobbs would keep him and take him up to the school, and he would be enrolled. So that is the only way sometimes that we ever
Were there like a dozen children, or less than that in the school?
sometimes less than that.
And all the ages were together?
Yeah. All the ages were together. I don't know how we managed, but we did.
Well, you all got an education.
Yeah, sure did.
So, then as you were growing up, then how did things change as far as
There wasn't a whole lot of change until Well, the change was not drastic until after the war. And then it really started booming.
People started finding out
Yeah.
about unreal.
My brother and I was out in the flats all the time, picking up things that was interesting, and also bringing home the bacon, you might say. We'd bring home clams and oysters, and we finally learned to open scallops.
Mm-hmm.
And when we did, we'd load our little boats up and bring them back to shore and sit down on the edge of the water and open them up. And my mother would wash them. And as we got older, maybe 8 or 9 years old, we would take these scallops up to Anna Maria and peddle them. Before long, we had regular customers. Lena Phelps was one of our best customers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the summer, well, this was of course a summer deal. June and July, and half of August, was the season on scallops. And a lot of the people from Braden would come out, such as the Harleys and a lot of people from Town Meadow. And they'd rent a house out here on the beach, and sometimes they'd order 2 and 3 quarts at a time. And my brother and I sold these for 50 cents a quart.
That was good
Oh,
money
You can
then.
imagine.
That was good
But
money
that
then.
was good money then.
How did they fix them then? Just fry them up?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's the only way that
I know in later years you wrote a book about, what was that book called that you wrote?
Shellfish in Florida.
Well, it was a cookbook.
Cooking, catch and cook shellfish.
Oh.
Yeah.
From the shops.
Uh-huh.
So, how about storms? Do you remember there were any really large
I
storms
remember-
that hit this area?
I remember a lot of storms, yes. We had a lot of storms, and they were not, I don't believe, much over 100 mile an hour velocity.
That's pretty.
Yeah,
That's enough.
it's enough. But we had no obstruction on the beach. There was no seawalls, and the beach was
Wide.
a quarter of a mile almost beach, pure beach. And that bluff was, I guess, 6 or 7 or 8 feet tall. And it had the sea oaks growing on it. And it just was a natural way for the waves to go.
Mhm.
So the damage wasn't all that bad. I think in 1921, the water was supposed to, and I don't know about this, but I've heard the water, the Gulf met the bay on this island, that it was underwater.
Maybe down Brandon Beach or the whole
The
island.
whole island,
Oh,
yeah.
21.
Well, I've heard that it was probably spots because people that had homes here said it never did go across. But yeah, you get different ideas.
Oh,
on that.
yeah. Well, there's different places too.
That's what I
This
mean.
is one
Yeah.
of the places where they would meet, because it's a narrow place right here. So anyway, we didn't have very much warning from
Yeah. Nobody was.
radio.
No radio.
But my dad got his information from the birds and from the weather. I mean,
They-
the clouds.
Fishermen know.
Yeah.
They learn early. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, we had no way of knowing what it was, how much velocity it was going to be, but it never got so bad that anybody's house blew away. Might have blown a few windows out, but
In those days, were the houses mainly frame, or were they?
they were mostly framed, and they were put together you wouldn't believe. They had so many nails in them that nobody could ever tear a house down.
Oh,
I mean, if they wanted to scrap the lumber, it was just about impossible. You'd rather burn it down. They really did. They put those houses together.
A lot of it
good
was made.
weather.
A lot of it was made out of that Florida pine that was cut out when the tree was still a tree, and it was pretty
yeah.
hard stuff. Wasn't
Yeah, it was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So they could weather the storms.
Mhm.
Well, I know that one on Oak Avenue.
Yeah.
It's right on the beach. I don't know when it was built, but goodness, that certainly withstood a lot of
Yeah.
good weather.
Yeah. I used to know that man's name, but I can't figure it out.
Ludwig, was it?
Yeah.
he was one of them.
I'd like to find out about that house. Be an interesting.
Well, it's had water around it a number of times. I
It
mean,
sure has,
But
yeah.
I think it's like a wooden boat. It's where it
Right.
lives and, you know,
Uh-huh.
with the weather.
well, for a long time, they were building, a lot of houses were built like they're supposed to be now with,
Yeah.
with the piling.
So, what else can you think of that is interesting?
Well, I remember when that Palmetto Shack was being built right down here on the corner of 52nd Street on the north side. It was a two-room place too, and the framework went up first. The men put the framework up, but my job, I didn't get paid for it, but I was just interested enough into it to have a job of my own. They would cut these palmetto leaves out and lay them down in rows, 10 or 15 rows of them, and they'd lay 2x4s over them because the palmetto leaf doesn't lay flat, and they wanted it to lay flat to put on this framework. So every day I would go out there and I'd take the 2x4s off and turn those palmetto fans so that the other side was up, and I'd put the 2x4 on there. And that went on for weeks while the framework was going up. They cut the palmettos leaves first because it took a little while to get them to lay flat. And after this building was erected, it was all the roof, the sides, everything was palmettos, palmetto leaves. It was kind of cute.
They had a framework of wood, and
Yeah.
then they just nailed
Nailed it
the
to 'em.
palmettos on with them.
I wonder if there are any pictures of that extent. There ought to be.
I
should
have one.
Have
Do you?
it?
Really?
Yeah, I
That'd
don't
be
know.
interesting.
Well, you're gonna have to get out some of your
I will,
pictures
I'll
for
have
us.
to, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that would be
We'd like
interesting.
to, she has a picture here of her brother and herself and her mother on the beach, but it's
Looks real wide. It's too small to show
Yeah.
here.
But we'd like to maybe make it enlarged.
Uh-huh.
Because that was about 1920.
Yeah.
This is the main problem. The Historical Society is having no dates on pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I can just about put a date on mine.
Yeah, well, that's,
Might not be.
Come pretty close.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But when you walk in that Palmetto Shack, it smelled so good.
now, was that a home? Is that somebody's home?
Yeah, it was one of my uncle's homes. The homestead house was great big, but I guess he wanted to be by himself. So they built that for him. That was Uncle Ike. He lived here for years.
Is his name Raymond?
No, it was Gilman. That was a.
So other members of the family were here besides your mother?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Where did your mother and father originate from?
New Jersey. Yeah. Both of them.
Never go back if they came from.
Once.
That was enough, probably.
Well, just to see what was going on up there. My mother lived on a farm up there, New Jersey.
Were there any cars on the
Oh, yeah,
island?
yes, some old Model Ts. We had a Maxwell, and a little brown Maxwell, and the Cobbs had a Model T Ford, and I don't remember.
But there were horses out here, weren't there, for transportation or carts or?
Not when I came here.
Oh,
There were horses. My uncle had a horse. His name was Toby. But I
imagine Mr. Dittman had a car by then, didn't he, on his mill route, probably?
oh yeah, he had a,
Mhm.
yeah.
But he did it by horse, I think, for a while. I understood he did, but I'm not positive about
I couldn't
did
say.
you know him?
Oh yeah,
He was a
definitely.
character.
Wasn't he though?
that.
So was his wife.
I didn't know about her. What was her name?
Oh, it's a common name, but it eludes me right now. Rosie.
Rosie?
Uh-huh.
Oh, they lived up in Maria.
Uh-huh.
Was she noted for anything or?
No, she had she was a beautician. They lived on Spring Street,
Mhm.
and great big house. It's a nice house.
Still there?
Uh-huh.
Near the Clays and that kind of area. That
And she had a beauty parlor there in her
Yeah.
house?
No, not in her house. She drove to Bradenton every day.
I thought maybe she had one out here on the island.
No, there wasn't enough people here to warrant a beauty parlor. But my brother and I would go out when we were always making 10 cents here and 10 cents there. We'd go out with with a pail and gather grapes, wild grapes, for Miss Kathleen Jones Donovan. When she was living in the old home place, she made jelly and she sold it in Bradenton.
That was a sea grape, wasn't it? Sea grape.
No, it was. There was this vine,
Oh, okay.
the black grape.
Concord?
No,
It had to be.
they were wild.
Oh.
They always, every palmetto tree in those days that you would see was covered with this
Oh, okay.
vine. Black.
But they're not here anymore, are they?
They're here, but they have to hunt for them.
Oh. Well, that brings you up to today.
Yeah.
The great changes on this
Oh, yeah.
island, which I know the old timers aren't too wild about.
Well, it just doesn't bother me too much, except I feel like I'm closed in too much to my liking, and I'm not happy about trying to get on the highway in tourist season, or get into a restaurant or a post office. But other than that, I guess I just acclimated myself as time went by.
How about how the shoreline has changed and the erosion problem?
Oh, that's sad. It really is.
I see in today's paper that they might be getting quite a sum of money from the government for beach preservation.
Oh yeah, they're supposed to have gotten a fabulous amount from the government and from other sources too, from the county, and well, it was quite a bit of money, something like 12 million for beach restoration.
But do you believe that all this building and the jetties and things like that have something to do with the sand being washed away?
Well, I think the jetties out there, like the public beach, has built the beach up, and the ones at Coquina Beach too. I think those kind that are where the pylons are sunk down deep has created a sort of thing whereby the beach is building up. But a little further down the beach, it's taking it away.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, they always say it builds up in one place and takes it
Has to take it from someplace else.
Yeah.
And I know years ago, Salty Saul told me that he thought when they put the Skyway Bridge up, it's when Anna Maria started having the erosion.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah. That's when the scallops deserted us.
Oh. Now, when did the fish desert?
Well, that was a little more gradually done.
Do you think that's pollution or just too many people?
I think it's overfishing.
Commercial.
Not only that, it's
Everybody.
yeah, all of it. I don't think the commercial people are detrimental to anything that's environmental, such as the birds. They feed the birds when there's no fish for them, when the fish dive down into the deeper water. They can't get anything to eat. The fishermen bring all kinds of trash fish in daily and feed them. They always have done that. And they get tangled up in a net, they take their time to get them out.
Yeah.
They don't tear their legs off and throw them overboard like some people would. They consider them.
Well, how about these beautiful shells that you have here?
Well,
There's a lack of shelling around, I noticed.
well, this one right here is a native of our waters.
Is that
It's
right?
called the horse conch, but this one is not. It's a native of the Keys. It's found only in the Florida Keys.
Now, did you find this one over here on the island?
I found that one, and I also found that one. And I found that one down in the Keys. It's probably one of the biggest ones you'll ever see.
They're just beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And this one, of course, is the one that is edible.
they make the conch fritters.
Club chowder and fritters and all kinds of things. Salad.
And now comes to the point that I want you to tell us about your latest endeavor, which has been writing a book
Oh,
using the
You want-
basis as the history of the island.
you wanted me to tell you how long it took me to write this book?
Sure.
It took me, well, at least 10 years. And I'm not sure that it didn't take longer. But as of course I had no writing background, any formal education in writing, creative writing, so I went to creative writing classes in Bradenton at the junior college and the other.
And what's the name of the book?
The name of the book is Angels of the Swamp, and it's a catchy title, and you probably wonder why angels would be associating themselves with snake-infested, stingray-infested, insect-infested mangrove swamp. So it,
Now, is it set on Anna Maria Island?
no, the setting is not anywhere in particular. It's like John MacDonald. He'll write a book about somebody in a certain place, and 15 miles away will be someplace we know about, and 15 miles this way some other place we know about, but we never can find that place on the map.
Oh.
And that's the way mine was.
But will we recognize
Oh
certain
yes,
places on
oh
that?
yes, it goes all the way from Fort Myers up to Tampa Bay, all that in that area, the West Coast part of that area.
Is it a mystery story or?
No, it's an adventure story.
Oh.
And my main characters is a 15-year-old girl who left home because her grandfather died, and she became an orphan, and there was a welfare agent that was trying to get a hold of her to put her in a foster home. So she just put her belongings in her little 15-foot skiff and pulled away. And she went into this great big swamp, mangrove swamp, where nobody ever went because it was shallow water and nothing in there anyway. And she figured she'd lay low until she could go on somewhere else, because she knew the authorities would be after her. Another character is a 12-year-old boy who left home because of an alcoholic uncle. That was his only relative, and he got fed up with him and decided to leave. And these two met in the swamp, and that's how the story begins.
How did you get the idea for this book?
I made it up right up here.
Oh, this came to you.
Yeah.
Well, that's
But
wonderful.
I bring in an awful lot of sort of hair-raising things about floating rattlers and moccasins in droves.
Now, are those things that were here and
They
around the
were
island
here, yes.
in the early days?
And I got the idea about these snakes falling in the boat because they fell in my boat.
Oh, I see.
Not only that, many times when I'd get up in the morning to get in my boat, there'd be a snake crawling up in there, a harmless water moccasin, a water snake. Wyatt Blassingame told me not to use the word moccasin because it sounds like something
That is-
ominous,
Yeah,
like the cottonmouth.
yeah.
But these were, I guess there was 50 varieties of snakes here at the time, and all of them, these water snakes, were harmless.
How about animals? I know there were raccoons and things like that. Were there
Raccoons all over the
Is
place.
there anything larger than a raccoon? The Florida panther or?
There was
Deer.
tales of it, but I never saw one here, and my dad saw many deer here when he was here.
Clyde Phelps tells about alligators
Yeah,
up in Anna Maria.
alligators. There was alligators, and there was also gophers. There's the land turtles
Right.
all over at high tide when the water would come up into their holes.
Is that the shell that you have back there?
No, that's
Is
a
that
turtle,
sea turtle.
sea turtle.
Oh,
We're not supposed to take those anymore,
oh.
but I got that years ago. I got it from Johnny Prothero. when he was chef, or they don't call it the chef, but anyway, he was the cook on a Coast Guard boat, and it was stationed over on the Egmont Key. And the boys tracked this turtle down, so he stewed it up for meat, and they had a feast.
I think they also had a few turtle eggs in those
I'm
days,
sure they
too.
did. We did too. We used
Of
to.
course, they're sort of endangered now.
Yeah. I never thought those turtle eggs were all that great anyway. Everybody talks how great they were. I thought they were terrible.
Oh,
They were so strange. They were about the size of a ping pong ball, except they were pliable. And you pinch one open, and the white would run out like water. And no matter how long, even if you cooked it in the shell, it would never congeal like the white of an egg of a
I
turtle.
thought they'd be sort of tough and hard, like a yolk.
Yeah, that's the only part that was edible is the yolk. And it wasn't. It was grainy. And it had a wild taste, gamey taste.
Strong taste, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Well, we certainly enjoyed visiting with you, Dorothy.
Well, it was a pleasure
It's been wonderful.
to talk to you
And I
too.
hope that maybe you can find some of your old pictures, and we could, maybe even have a viewing sometime at the museum. And
I'll do that. I had a lot of pictures of, well, not a lot, but I had made a sort of a stepping stones of where the post offices were located at different times.
oh, that would be
And I
interesting.
gave those all to Ann Riles and told her specifically that I wanted them back. I didn't have any negatives, but I never got them back.
Does she have a family that we could talk to, or?
No, they're all, even Humbug's gone. And he's the last of them.
Right,
He was
yeah.
related to Anna Maria Rock.
Yeah,
Oh, she was a cop.
she was
Anna
his
Maria
aunt.
Cobb.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I've heard both names of Anna Cobb Riles and Anna Maria Cobb Riles, and somebody seems to think it's Anna Cobb
It
Riles.
is. It's not Anna Maria.
All right.
Oh,
That Anna Maria is exclusive to Betty Lou's daughter, as far as I know.
well, I think we'll say goodbye to Charlie over in the corner. He's been listening in.
I learned more about the island today than I ever knew.
Oh, wonderful. Well, our interviews are very well accepted, and will be our next showing of the tapes will be March the 25th on Island Heritage Day. at the
Is that
library.
marked in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be March the 25th, and we'll have the showing of our videos at 4 and 7. It's right up here at the Island Bridge Library. We'll also have a lot of pictures up. And
Sweet of some of these beautiful shells that they have here, and there are some in other parts of the building that Charles is going to show me.
well, it's just sort of an invention of yours,
Yes.
but taking in
They're around the room.
Yeah, kind of introduce it just a little bit more again here. This fantastic
bridge-
railroad setup here.
It's an HO gauge. Right?
HO, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then this bridge comes down and goes right where you're standing.
Right. This is the bridge we're looking right at it here. My dad was a railroad man, so he would have loved to have seen this.
I would have been a railroad man because I had an uncle and a cousin that were engineers. My uncle was an engineer on the Nellie Bly, which was a famous old train, and then his son was an engineer on the Blue Comets, run from New York, New Jersey to Atlantic City.
Kenworth Railroad for
Well,
way back, huh?
Yeah, when I was a little kid, I was all out for this railroad, and then one day an airplane flew over and that spoiled the whole thing.
Kind of changed it, huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a lot of building, a lot of time spent on over there.
Right.
The town is there, the parks over there. I wonder if Carolyn would like to. This is
Alright. Oh,
A lot of work in this.
Oh, yes. And a lot of the engines I used to build by hand, but in July last year, when my eyes went bad, I had to quit flying.
oh, and look over here. This one's all too.
Oh, yeah, this bridge comes down and it runs all the way around the room. And on the wall, that's all black.
How long have you been collecting trains?
Well, this is my third railroad I've built. The other two people wanted it worse than I did, and I sold it.
Oh.
But I won't anymore because I can't see to build these now.
But when did you start collecting?
Oh, they're either kits or built by hand.
Oh, I see.
And then this could go back and get another train and bring it out to
Right,
Oh.
the other.
Yeah.
Put the bridge down to show that this does complete.
You were an airplane pilot, weren't you?
All my life. Got my first license in 1935, and I was flying 2 years before that. And I just quit 2 here in this house.
Is that right?
And then, like being a fool, I sold them.
What motors did you use, or what, were they biplanes, or
Well, one was a biplane and one was a baby P-51.
Mm-hmm,
They both had Continentals in them.
right.
Well, as I recall, when they used to spray for mosquitoes out here on the island, you were the pilot?
Yeah, I've done a lot of work.
Sure.
What year was that?
I used to fly the helicopters for the sheriff's department.
Yeah. Well, when they sprayed out here for mosquitoes, that was about in the 50s.
Yeah. See, I came over in 1950 to see my sister, Elsie died. Elsie Crawford,
Oh, yeah.
Johnny and
That's
Elsie.
right.
And when I got back to Texas, of course, we had our outfits in Texas. Our business was there. And I got starting to think about this island, and I thought, hey, that's where I want to live. Yeah. And it started getting bad out there. We knew the pollution situation was getting bad, and that they were going to shut us down on those poisons.
Mhm.
Did this little plaque with needlepoint type of work. To know how sweet your home may be, just go away, but keep the key. Mimi.
Deal there.
I thought that was real interesting there.
Amy's what?